All right, so we should be live here. I'm just gonna double check in the YouTube stream itself. I'm live with Elizabeth Halassa. She is the friend of one of the guys I went to high school with. She also went to Kirtland High School and recently went on a trip to it was Croatia and Jordan, correct?
Yeah,
Perfect,
I was
perfect.
in, I was in Croatia for vacation and Jordan for study abroad.
That sounds good. And how long were you in each of the countries?
I was in Croatia for about 2 months,
Back
and then I was in Jordan for almost five
for
months.
5 months. Okay, and
Yeah.
you studied a full semester there, right?
Yeah. We took like two classes, but our main goal was to like learn the language and immerse in the culture. So it wasn't like rigorous classwork. But yeah.
Okay, cool. So I think a couple of things we wanted to talk about was one, I wanted to give you a chance to kind of just explain your trip, kind of what you saw, how it was, and then get into some of the Islamic culture differences and maybe the regional culture differences of Jordan. And then we're going to discuss a little bit of maybe gender, the masculinity, femininity, and how that differs in the United States to kind of wrap things up. So, first off, what were you studying while you were in Jordan?
So like I said, we took a bunch of language courses, but we also took a cultural course. And I don't know if many of your listeners know, like Jordan is a very diverse place in the Middle East. They have or they host a lot of refugees from Palestine, Syria, Iraq, where else? Pretty much any like surrounding country that's like at war. Their refugees go to Jordan. So I took a class about that. I took a class on what else? Oh, like Jordanian literature or Arab literature and poetry.
I'm actually
So
pulling up Jordan right now. Oh, I thought Jordan was, for some reason, I thought it was in between Turkey and Syria. I forgot that it was east of Israel.
no, it borders like all of
I,
the major countries that are at war right now.
yeah, I completely forgot about that. I didn't realize it was, that's interesting. And I have it pulled up on the map right now if you want to say, like, what city were you staying at in Jordan?
I was staying in Amman.
Oh, Amman, the capital, it looks like.
Yeah, that's the capital,
Gotcha.
and that's where most people live, and it's very crowded because a lot of refugees live there, Palestinian refugees.
Mm-hmm.
But when you get like outside into the other, like my family is from Karak, which is I don't is that northern? I think that's I think that's a northern like area
I'm
in
looking right
Jordan.
now, but I got a train going by, so I'm muting my mic.
Um,
Oh, I see Kerak. It's on the southeast corner of the Dead Sea.
okay,
Kereak. You
is
said
it
that's where it
K? Yeah.
on the map it says Kerak.
Oh,
But yeah. You said that's where your family's from?
yes, that is where our family's from. And another thing we should mention is that Jordan is a tribal society.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, where you come from is extremely important to the people there.
But
Um,
like for society's sake, like people pay attention a lot to um is it more like the locality you were raised, like the people you know in the community, or is it more your family?
okay, so Jordan is like the size of I forget what state. It's puny. I think it's
Yeah.
the size of like Rhode Island or something. It's really small. So you can travel the entire country like in I want to say 6 hours,
Well, I got a
top to bottom.
satellite map pulled up, and it looks like a majority of Jordan is just the northeast part of the desert of Saudi Arabia. It looks like the northeast corner by Amman and Irbid are
Yeah,
the Irbid. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but like those look like the only real developed areas up in the highlands.
right, right. And so when it comes to tribalism, like before the lines were the borders were drawn, I
Mm-hmm.
think it was in the 40s. Um,
I think
like
the first time was after World War One. That's when they decided to chop up the Middle East.
Right.
The League of
Or
Nations.
I think it was like in the 50s or 60s did it become actual. It was Transjordan, then it became Jordan.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah.
before then, I mean, like Arabs were they had their tribes and they knew each other like by the tribe name, by the
Mm-hmm.
tribal name. So like
Like your surname.
yeah, like your surname. So if you're from this like region or this yeah, if you're from Jordan and your tribe is from Jordan,
Mm-hmm.
all of the Jordanians they know you. They sort of they treat you special, you know, like you get special treatment. Uh, Compared to like if you were from Palestine, where it was more metropolitan, cosmopolitan. There were people from all over in Palestine, and they sort of lost their tribalism. So their names didn't really reflect like you can't some Palestinians that they hold on to their lineage, but there are some Palestinians out there where their names like Ali Mustafa. And if your last name is a first name, that means they can't trace your lineage. So
Oh, that's interesting.
this was like a huge thing. Like people would not like associate with you, be friends with you if they didn't know your last name and where your family came from. So, and that's kind of something we don't have in America because we're very like
No,
individual.
actually, I think a lot of the American last names, in particular, are very vague last names. Especially, I know a lot of the slave names and some of the puritanical names, like Miller, Smith. Those were normally the professions of the people, not their. They didn't have, like you said, they come from peasantry or serfdom or whatever it is, where they don't have access to their true like family name. So
Right,
it sounds like that's kind of analogous in our society.
right. But we don't care though, like what your last
No,
name is
it
now.
doesn't matter as much. No.
Over there, I would get into an Uber and they would, ask us, "Oh, you're Americans," all this stuff. And then I would drop in like, I'm from Karak and my last name is Halasa. And they would freak out and be like, "Oh, no way." Like I know because they can tell they know people from that tribe.
Hmm.
And also, anyone that's famous or that gains fame in Jordan with that last name, it sort of like,
It represents,
we all
yeah.
share.
It
Yeah, we all
represents
share
that,
that idea.
yeah. The glory.
Like the first lawyer ever to get to practice law in Jordan was a Halassa. The first, I think, surgeon or very one of the first surgeons was a Halassa as well, and so on. So people like they know that where you're from. Oh, you're from like this southern part, rural area. They think like that's true Jordanian, true whatever. So this is very heritage and lineage is very important to Arabs, which was an interesting experience. And if you're on the flip side of it, it could be
You got a lot of background noise there, just to let you know.
hmm?
There's a lot of background noise coming through the mic.
Oh, there is. Sorry.
Yeah, sounds like you're
Or not?
like uncorking a wine or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Well, I'm not doing that.
there's like a lot of rubbing and kind of.
Okay.
I just want to let you know that's coming through. But while you've been talking, I've been pulling up some pictures of Amman. Did you get a chance to see the amphitheater? I'm seeing a lot of pictures of that. There's I don't know the name of this amphitheater. The Roman amphitheater in Amman, Jordan.
Roman. Yeah, we did all of the
Like
all
touristy
of the
stuff.
touristy stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Architecture looks really cool there.
It is. It's a beautiful country. I recommend people to go visit, but living there, there are these social divides,
Right.
and I don't know, like starting a life there, starting a business there, probably wouldn't be easy for an outsider
Okay.
um, because of tribalism.
Because
It's
the
so
people they have like a favoritism towards the people they're already familiar with, so much so where you wouldn't get a seat at the table, maybe.
yeah, exactly,
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
So okay.
It-
I don't know. I'll ask you a deep question. If you could only choose to be a Jordanian citizen or an American citizen, what would you choose?
um, See, okay. Obviously,
I,
American citizen
right.
because everybody's clamoring to get to America. There's so much opportunity, and so obviously I would keep that. But there's just, for me at least, there's just this sense of like home and community in Jordan. and it's
Oh,
probably
hey,
because
sorry. We have someone engaging in the chat. Uh,
mm,
they're saying, "Are you American?" Yes, we're both American. We grew up in Ohio, and Elizabeth, her family is from. Your father's Jordanian, your mother's Croatian, correct?
yes.
Yes, and I was born in Venezuela, and I'm Colombian, but we are both American, and we're both living in Chicago now. So just to clear that up for our guest. Sorry, I forget to engage in the chat sometimes.
It's okay.
So yeah, we were just discussing being an American citizen versus being a Jordanian citizen, or where you would choose to live. Really, is kind of the question I'm asking.
It depends on like if I wanted to run my own business, if I wanted to excel in like a career, I would choose to be an American. But if I wanted like I guess like a simple life that's really like rooted in community and family, I
Kind of
would
like
enjoy.
you like the traditional side of things.
Well,
To
yeah,
to
it's traditional, but also their social life. It's just like what they prioritize. They don't prioritize work as much. Like maybe they work like 5 hours in the day. Like nothing really gets done in Jordan. But people are always meeting, like going to the cafes, um,
and
hosting
you're
dinner.
saying like person to person meeting, not just a bunch of well, like we're doing right now. It's not
Right.
electronic. It's actually going to a cafe. It's going out and meeting people. There's more of a social preference to be doing that than maybe working or XYZ.
Right. I mean, okay, so some of the people, like if in Jordan, you're either poor or you're rich. There's really no middle class.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm just going to give you from like my perspective. My family is pretty well off. And so I guess they hold professions like doctor and lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
And so like my two cousins that are doctors, they work like 3 days nonstop. They give 3 days out of the
Right,
week
right,
nonstop.
right. And
Then
then
they
they have
have
4 days off.
right.
Okay.
So, and then my cousin who's a lawyer, she works, when her clients need her to work. When she has to do work, she goes into the office.
Right.
But sometimes it's only like 3 or 4 hours a day. So she comes back home and she has her friends come over and she's always making dinner. Like people are always coming over for dinner.
Now, how is a working woman treated in Jordan? Because I think, based off of the conversation we had before, it sounds like Jordan might be a little bit more progressive as far as some of the other Islamic states in the region.
Yeah. I found there's a lot of women working.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly. I can't speak to like personal experience, but
Sure.
I know that like my cousins, they are put like my one cousin, she's a manager of a department, and the other one, she's a lawyer. So I don't think I think that like maybe we like import stereotypes and gender ideas onto situations that sometimes aren't there.
Okay.
Like sometimes like is there sexism? Sure, but like is it happening all the time? Like I'm not sure about that. Like they don't complain about it. They don't say that like men don't take them seriously or.
So
That wasn't like
it might be as bad as it is here, or because the one thing you said is that they don't complain about it as much. But do you think that they don't complain about it as much and there's more, or they don't complain about it and there's maybe an equivalent amount or even less? Because that I think that's maybe an important a distinguishing factor.
yeah, I don't know.
Okay, because I'm actually pulling up right now. I'm trying to find our Jordanian. I'm looking up online to see if there's some stats on the women in the workplace. But
Well, I will tell you that we had to do something for my cultural class. We had to look at women working in Saudi Arabia. There's more women working in Saudi Arabia than there are in Jordan. I know that women have a very like low employment rate in Jordan.
okay,
And the reason for that is because everything in Saudi Arabia is separated by sex. So a woman, you have your bank you go to only for women. You have you know, I don't know what else would be. Everything is separated. You have your own stores. You have your own. When it comes to the government, even in Jordan, I had to get my visa renewed. This is an interesting story.
okay,
we had to get our visas renewed, and we had to drive to Madaba, which is another city, and it's like an hour drive with traffic. So it was tedious getting there. We finally get there, and the police officer says, "I'm sorry, we can't take the girls' fingerprints. We don't have a woman working on staff." And I was livid. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" I was like, "I'm an American. I don't care if a man touches my hand, like fingerprint. Like I don't give a fuck." And excuse my language. And
I don't care.
no, and so we had to leave
Okay.
and come back the next day.
Because there's no woman working for her to give you fingerprints.
Right, because she had to.
To do your
The
fingerprints.
guy had to hold our hand. Well, so we go the next day, and there's this young police officer there. He doesn't speak English,
Okay.
and he takes our passports, and he notices. I think this is me like assuming. I
Sure.
think he noticed my last name. Okay, and I bet he's from Karak or wherever, because most of the people in the police force and the army, they're
Right.
from
They're local. Yeah. They're
local.
Jordanian nationals.
I think he recognized my name, and he was like taking pictures of us, of me and the other girls in my program.
Interesting.
And I noticed that he was like kind of like because it wasn't really that like nonchalantly, like it was pretty obvious.
Yeah, he wasn't hiding the fact that he was doing it.
Right.
Okay.
And I was uncomfortable, and I was also pissed because I'm like, if you're supposed to be professional, you can't do that. Like you have my
Well,
official
you're not supposed to,
document.
at least.
Right, you're not supposed to do that, right?
Yeah.
And in that moment, I understood, like just like the vibes that they were like he was giving off. Like I understood in that moment why they have women administering the fingerprints.
Because the
Because
guys are kind of weird about it.
they're so unprofessional. And then I was talking to one of my professors about this, and she said that like men and women they don't have interaction. Like men don't have interaction with women that aren't a part of their family, their tribe. So they don't know how to like.
So
they don't know what is appropriate.
Well,
and then a woman who's uncovered gets treated with a certain lack of respect as well.
Right, right. I was just going to say it kind of might go back to that similar economic class disparity where it's, there's only the rich and the poor, but also as far as your relationship with women, it's only very intimate or not intimate at all. Do you think that might be true at all?
Yes, absolutely. I don't think they have the concept of being just friends.
Yeah, like just the nuance of a platonic relationship, that it's just not there.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds fair.
For some people, like I've met Jordanian men there that they're normal, like normal to American standards when they talk to girls. They can be friends. But then I met some people that if you are nice to them and you say, "Here's my number, we should all hang out sometime," they madly fall in love with you and they propose to marry you, and it's
So they move a little too quickly.
They move very quickly. They really do.
Now, the one thing I'm curious of, because this is maybe something that's been more culturally pushed by, movies and TV shows, is there this bold kind of, I guess, certain parts of media might call it toxic masculinity, but is there like this indebted idea of masculinity where the women in Arabic culture are indebted to their men? Because we talked about some other things before, but when it comes into the courting aspect of the things, is it like is your attention owed to the men? Is that maybe an implication being made? Or is it not? Do you have kind of your own liberty to be able to be like, you know what? No.
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay, I wasn't sure because sometimes in TV shows, movies, they make it seem like Islamic men or Arab men are very pushy and forthright with their advances, and it's like you can't get away. I wasn't sure if that's actually true or not. Something I wanted to ask.
They're pushy with an American woman that they think is easy and loose,
I see. Uncovered.
But if you're covered and you come from a good tribe and a man harasses you, the woman she can go home, she can say, so and so said this to me, and all of her uncles, all of her brothers, all of her cousins will come with guns. And
so they're kind of like unruly children. When they know they can't steal cookies from the cookie jar, they keep their hands to themselves. But as soon as they know the cookies are unguarded, metaphorically speaking, they do whatever they want.
Yeah, I mean there are certain. It's like you give your utmost respect
Mm-hmm.
to women who you deem deserves that respect. But if you think that they are a certain way, I mean, they'll catcall you in the streets. I mean, they catcall people that wear the hijab, women that wear the hijab too. But I think that
Probably not as much because they know, like you said, the tribe they come from and everything. Um, yeah, that's really interesting because I don't think, well, the whole covering, women covering themselves is a whole angle that isn't really, uh, you don't get that much in the United States, if any, in certain places. Not in Kirtland, I'll tell you that much. Um, but the other side of things is you wanted to talk about. I think you said the timeliness of the people is when someone sets, uh, um, you know, you make plans with somebody that they're much more loose than maybe in the Western world or the American side of things. Is that am I
yeah,
reading that right?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Um, and that stems from the fact that uh, there's no punishment or reprimand
Like there's
for.
no accountability for bad behavior.
No, none whatsoever. I mean, they have no smoking signs in university. Okay, everywhere, no smoking.
Uh huh.
But every single person is smoking in the atrium. Every single person is smoking inside, even the staff,
Really?
like professors. Yeah, of course.
So they put up the no smoking sign, but they're just like, nah, we did our job. Whatever.
Right. It was like, well, the sign is up there, they know, but like nobody's going to
And this was at
say,
the
hey,
university you went to?
yeah.
And what university was that? I'll pull up some pictures while we can maybe get into that a little more. What was the name?
The University of Madaba, and that's Madaba.
Yeah,
Madaba.
Madaba.
Yeah, the American University of Madaba.
I'll pull it up. Oh, here it is. Okay, American user. So
It's not really a glamorous university, but yeah.
yeah, I just want to pull up some pictures, just kind of have something in the background while we talking. I had the Google Map image of where Jordan was, but yeah. So you're talking maybe where does this lack of accountability stem from in the culture, or is it more on a family level? Do you think it's more social, um, social cult?
Oh,
Where do you think it stems from?
so well, what I observed was on a like professional governmental level,
Mm-hmm.
Jordan is unorganized and it's chaotic. If you look, there's like no street markings. There are so many people trying to drive in the same lane. Like it's so chaotic when it comes to that. But when it comes to um, like societal, like when it comes to cultural roles, gender roles, like what you're supposed to, like even in their language, you say something and there's always a response that you will always say. Like if I say assalamu alaikum, you will always say wa alaikum assalam, So it's
Mm-hmm.
like that's a structure, that's a foundation. There are
Well,
things like when I
let me
when
pause you real quick. We have a viewer who Anwar Ode, who said this conversation is so American. I mean, almost all the Americans have the same thought about Jordan. It's sad how shallow you guys are. And I just replied with, "What are we missing?" Do you know what he might be referring to? I assume he. I don't know. I don't know. Anwar sounds like a male name.
yeah.
But do you
Yeah,
know?
I don't want to take away from the fact that there are some really, I mean, there are obviously redeeming qualities about Jordan that, and I'm not saying that like these things aren't happening. It's not all black and white, these things are
Right, of
complex.
course. We're speaking in generalities here.
Right. So I mean, yeah, I don't know exactly. Can you be more specific to what we're saying that he doesn't
Yeah,
agree?
I asked him what are we missing. I just want to let you know that he asked that. We can continue on. I just want to let you know
Yeah.
that this was being said, and if you wanted to make sure you had, I'll tell you if he says anything else. But just be cognizant of the fact that apparently we're being ignorant Americans. But it's like if we don't get an answer, we're gonna come to our own conclusions. That's the American way. So
Well, I mean,
tough
and taking
titties.
into account that I am a Westerner that went to,
Well,
you
yeah,
know,
and
like
obviously
it's
it.
coming from a Western perspective. But yeah,
I was just gonna say, like, obviously we are gonna be more shallow because if someone doesn't show us the depth and breadth of the amazingness of Jordan, we're only going to see the shell that we're able to, observe. So, or you were able to observe, and I'm listening to. So, I don't know. I don't think we can be that held accountable. But you'd been talking about what you'd noticed as far as the accountability, and we didn't really get into any further there.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
mm-hmm.
Well, since things are unorganized, it's not really strict, and there aren't like real punishments for breaking a rule or
Breaking rules,
something.
yeah. Like you'd mentioned the smoking. You
Yeah,
mentioned a few things about some traffic situations.
yeah,
Yeah, because like I know here in America or even in Europe in general, it's like a lot of your civic setups of your local government. They make sure they're keeping everything well signed, and you don't miss when. Honestly, sometimes I wonder why there's so many damn road signs here in the United States. It's like left turn, make sure you're in the left lane. It's like I know, but thanks for like having 5 signs before I get there to make sure I know that there's a left turn lane. You know, is it that kind of stuff where things just aren't marked that well, or is it maybe that it's more disorganized structurally?
yeah. It's definitely like a infrastructure problem as well.
Okay,
Um,
I wasn't sure if it was like nitpicky or if it was just like organizationally it's just not working. The two different.
yeah, yeah, and I don't know
No.
where else to go with that one,
Okay.
but I will say that um, uh, like culturally there is structure, and that's what I admire about that, and that's one of the things that you know, uh, going there, I was this, I don't know, like liberal. I had these ideas about, um, you know, Arab culture that I think sort of that have changed, since I went spent time there and lived there for 4 months. Um, and one of the things that I admire is the presence of standards,
Okay.
and how like there are things that are expected of you, and even like obligations, which I know sometimes can be tedious, but like it was nice having like family obligations,
Mm-hmm.
and like having like something expected of you,
Right. Well,
which is
when
different.
when you say expected of you, like having dinner with the family, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like there's a certain like time commitment,
Mm-hmm.
like you're not just doing your own thing. Your family's very much involved in your life.
Right. That's definitely something. Actually, that was a question I was gonna ask later. Was what can we learn from Jordanian culture? And that sounds like a part of the answer is the fact that we can spend more time maybe together. Well, also we're 20 somethings where we're kind of at an age where we're a little more independent than we will be in the future. But it's definitely something to keep in mind.
Right. Well, I mean, like even living on your own is a weird notion there. Like
Is
my
it?
cousins. Yeah, like I have a cousin. She's like 30, like living with her parents still, working. And she's not going to leave until she gets married.
Mm. Oh, she's gonna stay at the family's house until she gets married.
Right.
Interesting. Yeah.
Until So it's not like they don't go off to college and get their own apartment. I mean, maybe they do. Like I know some people that live on campus in Madaba, but they live on campus. They don't live
Right.
how I'm living right now in Chicago on State Street. Like that's sort of unheard of. But yeah, I mean, because it's just going back to it's a more of a communal society. Um, and America, we're individualistic, and
Yeah,
um,
we'll do it ourselves kind of approach until it doesn't work out, and then we'll go back to our group when we need to clean our nose and get everything sorted out.
right, right.
um, yeah, and I don't know, maybe kind of hit a little more of what you saw on the side of kind of the women, of what they were experiencing differently versus women in the United States. Because that was one of the things we had brought up, and I think you had a few points that you wanted to make. I don't know if we got to everything as far as maybe
Uh,
differences.
well, I will say that like there's more expected of men when it comes to like, obviously being like financially supporting women, and like women can kind of get away with things, I think, more easily than men can in some
Okay.
regards. Obviously,
So there may be like more nuclear family kind of, where the man is the
oh,
breadwinner, and the that traditional kind of 50s is more in line with what the norm is in Jordan.
yeah.
Okay.
But I will say that like most of the women that I came into contact with that were a part of like the upper class,
Hmm.
they all had they all had careers,
Okay.
just because they can. I mean, when you have money, you can afford to be a journalist, you can afford to be working in politics, you can afford to,
Right.
you can afford to like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I feel you.
most of them did work in the schools or at the university. But what was I going to say about women? Uh,
Sure. I
oh, well, I mean, okay. So just on a basic level,
hmm
there's this idea that women, they sort of hold the honor and pride of the family,
Okay.
and men are supposed to protect that. So
Okay.
that's sort of going back to like maybe a religious point about like why women cover themselves and why they dress modestly, um,
Yeah, because
and it's because they are seen as the purest like the purest parts of the human being. You'll find it in a woman. You
right,
don't find that.
the matriarchs of the family are the ones that are venerated. They're the ones, like you said, that hold the honor and the pride um, of the family. They're the one who kind of embody it.
But the father has the final word. Like
Right.
he is the one that runs. So it is a very it's such, I guess, traditional
But if there's like a
structure.
face to the family, it sounds like that's more on the mother side of things than the father. The father's the one who might allow everything to be the way it is, but if there's a face to the family, it sounds like that's the woman. Is that the case? Or is that
I
still the man?
I mean, I would say like in my family, like the people that were holding the conversation and keeping it going, and like the most lively animated ones were the women.
Okay.
Like they were the ones that were, and I think maybe a part of that. It's interesting to mention the presence of like the help. We have maids in Jordan. So women, like my aunt, she would never do the dishes after dinner. She would always sit with us, after dinner and drink tea, and we would, smoke and talk.
Hmm.
So I think in America, since we don't have maids to do our chores, a lot of the women sort of like after like a big family dinner, they all kind of congregate in the kitchen and do the dishes, and like they're the ones that are like, you know, doing that. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that the upper class women have more of a chance to like be involved like in socializing when you have like a party or something. They're
Right.
not like they're hosting it, but they have help, so it's not like they're kept busy by that, which I think is freeing, because I know my mom complains. I mean, she hosts every holiday, and I mean, it's a strain, on one person. So but yeah, that's an interesting
Yeah, well, the one thing is, I actually can say that having lived in Venezuela and Colombia, the idea of help, I'm aware of it too. That when we were in Venezuela, we had a maid. In Colombia, also had a maid. It's a different culture. I mean, you say that to an American, I think I don't know if they get offended, or if they like gasp. You have a maid? It's like, yeah,
yeah.
And the thing is, whenever I interacted with the maids, it was never like that kind of Cinderella approach. It was always like they're kind of a part of the family.
Oh, yeah.
It
I mean,
was.
some instances it's like I mean, like they have contracts,
Mm-hmm.
and it depends on the family that they get. I mean, like if you get a bad family, which I witnessed the maid in a bad family, and like I don't know, she needs help, obviously, but and by bad, like they didn't have food in the house, they didn't, they're not tending to her and her needs.
Okay.
But the maids in my family, like, yeah, my aunt, her maid has been with her for like I want to say 20 years.
Wow. Yeah.
and she, yes,
Obviously likes being with the family, you know.
yeah. And then my cousin, she has maids come in like every 2 years. It's a 2-year contract, and they usually make enough money. They're usually from the Philippines. They make enough money. They go back home. They build a house in the Philippines.
And off the money they made being a maid in Jordan.
Yeah, because that's how, I mean, the economic situation in the Philippines is, horrendous. So that a lot of women there come to the Middle East to do that. But now there's some countries and there's problems with this, like in the Gulf countries, for instance, there have been a lot of cases where the maids were treated very poorly. Like there was even instances of rape and abduction, and so like it's a dangerous profession. You don't know what family you're with.
There's the au pairs. There's a few. There's some professions out there where it's like, yeah, you get the opportunity to travel and meet new people, but it comes with a risk.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was a big part. Like that's a big difference from America. Is that there is help.
Yeah. And it's maybe not something to be looked down on as much as some Americans might think that's the case. I'm just pulling up some pictures from Madaba now. It looks like there's a. Did you get to see the St. George Church? This is just Google's pulling me up certain stuff.
I did. I think that was it's an Orthodox church, right?
I don't know. I'm just on Google Images right now.
I think that's the church it's the oldest map of Jerusalem. It's a mosaic.
Yeah, I'm seeing this mosaic here.
That's the oldest map of Jerusalem that we have.
Like in existence?
In existence, yes.
Really interesting. Yeah, it's very interesting, like the art here. But yeah, I think we got to a lot of the points here. I think one of the things you'd mentioned was maybe in the way the difference of communication between Jordanians, and you'd said that you noticed it a little more having vacation in Croatia beforehand. Kind of go along the lines of the way the men were so upfront in conversation when they saw like an hijabbed woman, that maybe that goes in line. Was there a communication difference that you noticed, like as far as the way they went about talking to you, that was significantly different than the way Americans talk to you?
No, I think most of the people that would like harass women are the people
not even harassing, just maybe conversation in general. I just know that you brought up that as like a gross more of an exaggeration of a circumstance, but like just a daily conversation.
I think that there were men in Jordan that were very forward, and I think that was just because I'm American,
okay,
and they thought that they would be.
Okay. That was kind of the expectation they thought you expected, maybe.
Yeah, and they thought like, who, like, why not? Like, who is this person? Like just like
right.
She doesn't live here,
Right.
But no, what's different that what I thought was different between Europe, like European men and Arab men, was that they like, and this is going back to like the standards. I was talking about standards.
Okay. Yeah.
The men in Europe, they objectify women almost more. Well, I don't know if more. They speak about women. They look at women sort of more as like sex objects, and they like act upon that. Like there's a girl in the village that sleeps with everyone, and they sort of make her the joke, but also like they
still keep coming back around to her even if they make fun of her.
Well, right,
Yeah.
But
a little hypocrisy there.
They respect women. Like in Jordan, if you were to say that about somebody's sister
yeah,
or mom, you would like, you're waging war. Like you can't say, can't. I mean, maybe you talk about like you talk about unveiled girls or like girls, whatever. You can say things about that, but like when there's more like respect, I guess, or there's seemingly more respect for women, And I think
It sounds like in the Arab world that your family is more of a representation of you than it is in the European and Western world in general, where like these men, they have no problem calling a woman a slut or whatever, you know, expression that would be in their language, but they have no problem with that because they don't necessarily maybe venerate the sisters and the mothers as much as they do in Jordanian culture,
yeah,
where it's like
and
that.
you know, yeah. Sorry.
No, I go ahead. Sorry.
You know, it's like okay, like most Arab societies, they're regressive in the sense that you are born to honor your grandfather's name. Like you
Mm-hmm.
are born to honor your family's name. It's not about like in America you're born and it's like what do you want to do with your future? Where do you want to like what do you want to do with your name? It's like no, when I if a person born in an Arab society they say oh they're going to be a doctor, like
Mm-hmm.
your destiny is predetermined and so
Mm.
you work your entire life trying to bring honor and respect to your name and uphold the honor and respect that's already been given to your name.
Right.
So you have to keep these things in mind.
It's an
Did I
expectation that's been set for you, while maybe in the Western world it's something you need to go out and find.
right, exactly.
Yeah, that sounds like a key difference there. Um, like
Yeah.
holding up a tradition and expectation of everyone that's been in your, because I don't know. I think that does exist a little bit here in the States, in even in the Western world, but not maybe as strongly as it sounds as in the Arab world. That kind of
Right.
cohesion within the family unit is much more important.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Exactly. But
So I mean, I think we kind of went into some of the cultural stuff. I mean, was there any interesting stories that happened along your trip, or somewhere that you had a day trip to, or something I could pull up here?
well, we hit the major places: Petra,
Oh, you saw
Jeddah.
Petra?
Yeah, of course. Wadi Rum,
What was the
which
second one? Latidum?
no Wadi Rum,
Ladi Rum.
WadiRum, Wadi Rum,
Mm, I don't know if
which is
I.
more of the desert. It's a desert landscape.
Okay, I didn't find it, but Petra I know. I know that. I think didn't they shoot? Or no, was that something else? Petra was something else where they had the um, Indiana Jones was shot at that Petra-looking place.
They were shooting tons of movies. When I was there, actually, in Wadi Rum, they were shooting Star Wars.
Really?
There was a yeah, they had a casting call actually, but me and my friends we didn't go because we had whatever
Can you spell
class
it
or
again? I'm
something.
gonna pull it up. Ladi? What's the first
No,
word?
no, W Wadi,
Wadi.
W yeah
Oh,
W A
Wadi Rum.
yeah Wadi Rum.
Oh, and this was just recently, so they're probably shooting the new Star Wars.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
That's some juicy details. And so, did you when you went to Wadi Rum? How's it pronounced? I don't
Wadi,
even know how I'm pronounce. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it
that's
right.
okay. Wadi Rum, like
It's
rum like you drink.
yeah. I'm just trying to pronounce it properly. But it looks like a Petra similar. It looks bigger. That it's like this whole side of a kind of plateau. Is that the actual Wadi Dum?
Well, oh yeah, okay. So Wadi means valley
Okay.
in Arabic. So
Wadi.
it's this like huge yeah. It's almost like not the Grand Canyon, but yeah, it has all these mountains. I really don't know my geography that well, but it's a gorgeous place. We hiked on top of one of the rocks to see the sunset, and it's famously known to have one of the most beautiful sunsets in the world.
Interesting. I see. It's near the Gulf of Aqaba.
Yeah, Aqaba.
Aqaba. Sorry. The,
Aqaba. That's how they say it.
my America is showing sometimes.
It's okay. It's such a hard language.
It is. It doesn't. I mean, it's really honestly. I think it's pretty beautiful. It's just I can't. It's not natural to the way I don't know use my tongue and my voice.
Yeah.
Doesn't come
No,
naturally always.
I feel that.
That's
Definitely.
interesting. And is Petra nearby? Body Dome? Because it looks like the similar area. It's like
Yeah,
the
I
Bedouin.
think they're 30 minutes away from each other. or 45, not too far
Oh
away.
yeah, Vadidum's a little further down south. Petra's not far from Kerak. It looks
Yeah,
like.
yeah.
And I'm just curious, being a geographer myself. Along the Dead Sea, I'm looking at the Google Maps, and there's like some lines going across the Dead Sea, directly west of Kerak. Do you know what those might be? Is it like retaining walls or anything, or do you
Are
know?
those um they could be dams? I don't know.
That's what it looks. It
Because I
looks
know
like they're trying to like slow down the water flow going southbound.
there's like a huge thing happening with the Dead Sea. It's drying up because
Ah,
they've built a bunch of dams. I don't really know much about that, but I know that it's a problem. And we went to go see where Jesus was baptized, actually, and the actual river where he was baptized dried up because of this
a recent
issue.
drought.
I think that's why. But I know that like we couldn't actually see. We just saw the place where the river was. We didn't actually see there was no water there.
Yeah,
But
I just found it. I'm scrolling around on Google Maps right now.
yeah.
Interesting, near Jericho. And how close is everything together there? Like going from Amman to Jerusalem, like is that a pretty quick trip?
Oh yeah.
Like an
Oh my gosh.
hour?
If even that.
So like
Yeah.
once you're in the Holy Land, it's pretty easy to get from place to place.
Yeah, everything is like I said, Jordan's like the size of like Rhode Island
Yeah.
or Maine, something. It's small.
Hmm. It's crazy because like I don't know. It's weird giving it a perspective if I've never been there. You know what I mean? Like I feel like I always forget just how big the United States is. That
Yeah, it's
like
huge.
the United States itself is bigger than the Mediterranean.
Right.
So, um, yeah, I mean, we're up to 56 minutes here. I mean, was there anything else you want to talk about your trip, or anything you noticed in particular? I think we kind of got a lot of what we had agreed upon to talk about.
Yeah. Um, Let me see. I mean, yeah, I think that's about it.
That's about it. I mean,
That's about
sounded like a good trip. I mean, where while we're on topic, where in Croatia did you stay? Because I have the Google Maps pulled up. I'll just take a look over
uh
there.
we stayed in like 20 minutes outside of the city of Zagreb.
Zagreb.
Well, we were within the city limits, but we were in a village. Yeah.
Gotcha. So
So,
you stayed just outside there. Okay, cool. So I just kind of wanted to show where you went on the screen real quick. So, well, it was a pleasure having you on, Elizabeth, and it sounds like you had a good trip. Uh, Glad to hear your perspective.
yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, glad we could share your story, and if you ever want to be on again, we can get that going. Wouldn't be that hard. All right?
Definitely. All right.
All right.
Thanks.
Have a good one. Bye.
You too.
All right, so glad to get a perspective. Want to talk a little bit about her trip and just discuss about some of the differences in culture and the way things are going on the other side of the world. So glad to get another perspective in. Um, just for the sake of the channel, looking ahead, I doubt many people get to the end of this video, but I'm looking at doing a channel trailer soon to just kind of describe what the best way of liking, subscribing, and following for notifications to be a part of the live broadcast. Uh-oh. Now, whenever Skype goes dead, my screen goes dead too. But yeah, I'm going to work on that real soon here and make it easier for people to know, because I know YouTube might not be the main platform for most people. So glad to have you listening, and this is Mike Pulaski out.